Hey guys, welcome to another Fair Income episode. Today we had the honor of having Aseel Sammak on. As you guys know, she runs Podium Productions. She's a full-time lawyer. We got to speak to her on what it's like to balance both of those, community work, family time, and her own profession. We got to speak about what it's like to have a supportive husband, family, and what it's like to be a leader in the community. I hope you guys do enjoy the episode. There was a lot of takeaways. Hope you guys write them down and implement them all. Enjoy.
Our best to do that, but we, I think, are very careful about our timing and the way that we go about doing that. Yeah. Because I believe if you're going to do work where you're trying to bring about social change, you also need to be understanding of the community that you work with. So there's no point just standing up and being like, you know, the entire community is not ready to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway, and you have to listen to me. There's more for stuff that I can do kind of on the side.
So you enjoyed writing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've always loved writing.
Okay.
Writing, speaking, public speaking.
You've always enjoyed public speaking?
Yeah.
That's a hard skill to have. Like they say like more people fear public speaking than death. Yeah, but like public speaking, like for example, with me, I'm a talker or maybe a bit confident, but if I'm on stage, I'm going red and I'm buckling.
Oh,
you know?
But you do this.
It's different, you know? Yeah.
It's more contained. But no, I reckon it was in the genes. Your old man was
the
bus photo.
I think a big part of it is like my parents have always exposed us to that stuff. So I think that's a huge part of it.
MashaAllah. So so what was the initial goal and like when you were starting off, like university and all that sort of stuff? Was it always law?
I have always known I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was like, I think, grade 3. Like I've always known, like I literally have this paper at home. It says, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer and a writer. Like I've always known that, I think. I don't know why. Maybe partly because I was Palestinian. We were so exposed to like the injustices in the world, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
what kind of law was it? You delve into humanitarian law, yeah?
At the moment?
Yeah.
No. So at the moment, I work at a suburban law firm. So I do family law, a lot of family law, and property law, immigration. Sometimes I do like small company stuff. So I'm a general practitioner. I do everything.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm specializing at the moment in family dispute resolution. I'm doing my master's.
And you pro bonos are like those cases where, so I know this terminology.
For free.
I mean, what's a Better Call Saul? Suits. So pro bono cases are usually like the immigration law and stuff like that, yeah?
Family, we do a little bit. Sometimes we have to take like, let's say, for example, you get like a woman who's been abused and she's just left her husband. She can't afford legal support. So those ones a lot of the time we either have to give them discount or sometimes pro bono work.
100%.
Is that on the rise now because of like COVID? Like a lot of times we hear about like mental health with families, with the children themselves. Is that on the rise as well? Like maybe divorce rates or family incidents within the household?
Yeah, like I've heard statistics, yes. I think for us, what I've noticed is that the level of like abuse that has occurred in the last 2 years is like really dramatic. It's really hard to kind of see. I think because the families have been like sort of locked up at home together, they've been exposed to each other more. And like, you know, the cases that we've had over the last year have just been really, really like heartbreaking. But statistically, like I've heard, divorce rate in general has gone up.
And it's like 51% or something like that, isn't it? Like
I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure exactly.
I thought they say divorce rates are going down because people aren't getting married.
Okay.
So actually, like statistically,
that's an interesting approach. Don't get married, you won't get divorced.
So breakups is probably going up. So that's what it is. Yeah.
So, but I just wanted to go back to like dealing with like family law in general. Yeah. So you've got people coming in for all kinds of issues and all kind of situations occurring between man, husband, wife, and whatever. And there's something that's been happening a lot recently: vaxxer versus anti-vaxxer in the house. Have you encountered any of those ones?
Well, I haven't had like that specifically, but we did have a matter where they'd already split up, and so like the matter had already been resolved, but they came back to us because the mother is the primary carer of the children. She wants to vaccinate them, but they have equal shared responsibility, so she has to get consent, and the father doesn't want to vaccinate them. So there was like a whole negotiation that had to happen just about the vaccine. But like if it had gone to court, like the court rules in what's the best interest of the children. So most likely we would have gotten the vaccination anyway.
Very funny. Half the children. One half takes it, one half doesn't take it. Everyone's happy.
Get one dose.
I heard because there was a story that was going around that I think a neighbor or something like that shut up a person in the household. He's an old guy.
Because
He was having a conversation with someone else, and because he was against the vaccine, and the other ones were trying to convince him otherwise. They got into disagreement. He killed someone. He was going around waving the gun on the street, and I was like, wow, okay.
People feel very, very strongly. Like we had a lot of people come to us at the start for legal advice on how to get out of getting vaccinated, and we're like, we can't help. Like this is something that, we can't help with this. Yeah.
It shows what people come for. So originally you said in grade 3 you had the goal of law and writing, which is obviously like a English dominant. Where did that skill set come with speaking, writing? Were you a big reader growing up? Was it your parents, maybe pushing you for educating yourself?
I think it's a combination of the two things you just said. So I think my parents played a big part in that. Like I remember even like when I was really, really young, I don't even know if I was going to school at the time. We'd go on a family trip, and then when we come home, my dad would be like, okay, now go and write a reflection on the day. No. So that just means that, like we just, I think from a very young age, we're just like learning to write and like express ourselves and that kind of stuff.
Have you looked back on those?
I have, I have like a little bit of a collection of stuff that, growing up we'd write and stuff. But and I think with law, like, again, also my parents, like, I remember we used to go to protests and be really active and see, like, my parents talking about issues in the communities and how things are unjust and unfair and people facing oppression, that kind of stuff. I think that really, as you grow up and you're exposed to that, you want to do something about it. So I think that's where that comes from as well.
Do you think, like, obviously that was an early goal, like you said, grade 3. Do you think now, looking at yourself, looking back, you've achieved both of them as law in your field and maybe your side venture, Podium, like that's your writing venture, that's your writing?
Yeah, that's kind of how I like to look at it.
That's good. Achieving your goals. Me, I was like an astronaut and a soccer player. Did neither.
Yeah, that's how I like to look at it. I think there's, hopefully we can do more in the writing area, but we're getting there, inshallah.
How did that writing venture start? Like, at least with Podium, like how did it all begin? It will take it back a couple of years.
Yeah, so Podium's actually having its 5-year anniversary this year. So when we first started, it was myself and Eva. We were both uni students at the time, very involved in like Islamic societies and that kind of stuff. And we were both also very involved in outside organizations, Islamic organizations that worked in mosques and that kind of thing. But there was a very clear problem at the time, I think, where there was very limited space for youth. There was very limited space for female youth to, express and, share their voices, express their opinions, be creative, make change in the community and that kind of thing. And so I remember we sat down once, we were at Melbourne Medina, we were talking and we were like, okay, I want to do something about this. I want to create an organization that is inclusive, that will allow people to express their opinions and grow and focus on topics that are affecting youth that we don't often talk about in mosques. So the name Podium came from the concept of minbar, so like the minbar in the mosques. So we wanted to create like a virtual minbar for people who don't have access to stand up in mosques and speak, to be able to do that in other alternative ways. So we've got, the magazine and, through media and even like things like this, we love to support it because that's what we love to see. We love to see youth, taking their skills and doing something with it that benefits the community.
So when you had the idea and he's all sketching it up, and did you feel like it come to fruition as you expected it to, or do you reckon you guys have achieved above what you guys expected?
I think it's very much changed. Like initially it was the magazine focus, and as we kind of grew, other people came into Podium with their own ideas, with their own aspirations, and you know, we incorporate that into it. So of course it's changed, but I think the ultimate thing that we're working on, the ultimate thing we're trying to achieve in the community is still the same at its core. But it's just the way that kind of comes to life is different.
So like you just allow people to do like express themselves in their own creative way and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got like, you guys run events. You also do the magazine, obviously from the beginning, and then you guys also did, I think, documentaries, mini documentaries, and
so we do have like media. So that comes in different forms. We've had like some documentaries. We've had some videos where like, you know, a group of youth sit down, have a chat, kind of thing. Just depends on what's needed at the time. But yeah, one other thing that's kind of changed from what we originally had in mind, and that's through learning and growth as well, is that when we do cover topics that affect Muslim youth, we've realized it's really, really important to bring experts also in the field to come and talk about it. So it's not just youth in an echo chamber talking to each other. Like, it's important that we have actual substance to the stuff we're talking about. We're not just bouncing off of each other's ideas kind of thing. So that's kind of, I think, developed over the years as well. So if you look at our most recent magazines compared to our beginning magazines, I think the content, you can see kind of a growth in that.
Yeah. Do you guys try to avoid taboo topics though? Like that's the thing that I think most people have to be very careful, especially us. Like when we come around talking about topics we want to talk about, I'm always loud about doing things that are a bit more taboo and kind of like not towing the line. But do you guys have to be very careful with that, or are you guys accepting of?
Look, we part of our philosophy is to cover taboo topics, so we try our best to do that. But we, I think, are very careful about our timing and the way that we go about doing that, because I believe if you're going to do work where you're trying to bring about social change, you also need to be understanding of the community that you work with. So there's no point just standing up and being like, you know, the entire community is not ready to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway, and you have to listen to me, because no one's going to listen. They're just going to put you on the side and be like, this person's crazy. So you want to also avoid that. So you have to be very smart, I think, about the way.
So what's the screening process like? So, because you guys are obviously giving voices to people who feel like they're the voiceless, basically, in the community. And for you guys, it's very difficult because you're going to give basically a podium or a minbar to blokes that you don't really know too much about sometimes, you know? So what's the screening process like? So
for the magazine, each article goes through 6 rounds of editing. One of those rounds is just a content approval edit. And our content approval edit is just, we just want to make sure that the articles that we receive and we publish align with our Islamic values and the organisation values. So we won't just, like, let's say, for example, if someone writes something racist in an article, we won't publish that. You know, that's very clearly against our values. And then the rest of the edits are grammar edits. But then when it comes to like open mic events, for example, can be risky sometimes because you're just opening it to people to come and speak and stuff. We do try to screen to a certain extent, but again, it's more just, okay, we just kind of want to make sure that what you cover aligns with our values. As long as it does, 100%. You've got the platform.
That's obviously content screening, like what they're writing. How about character screening? Because like as in the person comes in and you're like, random guy, Muhammad, he goes, I want to write this article. And he tells you an idea which is good, but you don't know anything about the person. Is there a process to kind of get to know the person? Like, can a random guy walk on the street and send you a message and then he's in the magazine? Or does there have to be like a relationship with you or someone on your team?
No, there's no like screening of that, except when we big part of what Podium does is also giving a platform for our volunteers, right? So and our volunteers are working with us long term to bring their own ideas to life. So there is some screening of the volunteers because that's a long-term relationship. They're going to have an impact on what the organisation does, and they're going to be representing the organisation. So if someone just walks off the street and says, I want to be a part of Podium, there'll be some screening there. Yeah, okay. We do interview, all that kind of stuff. We get to know the person. But for articles, not really. As long as the content itself isn't, against our values.
And obviously now you're speaking about your volunteer team. And I think when you started, was it 2016? Or
2016. Yeah.
Okay, so you started then, and I think at the time what you were saying with the MSAs, there wasn't really like a female leadership positions. So I think the first time like the MSA had a president who was a female was like 2 years ago or something like very recent. It wasn't 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So at the time there wasn't like leadership positions for females, and now alhamdulillah it's moving in that direction. Is a lot of your team females, like at Podium?
Yeah, predominantly.
Okay.
It's actually something we kind of we're trying to balance it out by getting more males on board. Like we have the exact opposite of what the other Muslim organizations have.
Yeah.
So yeah, predominantly it is a female.
What's the numbers, like 80-20?
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
We welcome males to come and join.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think with things like this, I think because Eva and I obviously female, and it would have started, the way it began is within our circles, so it did start very predominantly female, and to change that I think takes a bit of time and progress, so we're getting there. Our actual content, like the articles that we release, I think are not like predominantly either way. It's pretty balanced, but in terms of volunteer base, it's more females.
Okay. Because also in like now in 2022, it's maybe a bit more common to have like females in leadership positions or running organization, stuff like that. Throughout the years, have you gotten maybe backlash or anything that you kind of had to like obstacles from the community because you maybe have a female as a leader or CEO or founder and then has a voice? You know, a lot of times it's the male who's 50 and he's talking and he controls things, but now obviously you're saying 80% is females. Have you had some obstacles because of that?
100%, especially at the start. At the very start, we had a lot of people even doubt the fact that we'd be able to do it, partially because we were young. Like when I started this, I was like 23. You know, like that's a young age to start an organization, plus the fact that we were female. We had a lot of people like doubt us, not want to give us money for, like, obviously you're running a magazine, you need money, you need sponsorship. You know, when Eva got married and when I got married, we found at times we sometimes need to rely on our husbands to speak to people on our behalf, which is something I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, of course.
Like, but sometimes you have to do that, especially when you're trying to reach out to certain mosques or to, you know, certain like groups who are male run, and like they're not just, I can't just randomly message a male and be like, hey, salam alaikum, I need this from you, kind of thing.
Culture shock,
yeah. And they're just like, who's this female? Astaghfirullah, why is she messaging me?
Asking for money.
Yeah, so like there is difficulty in that. It has gotten easier, I think, especially as people have gotten to know what Podium is. But at the very beginning, it was really difficult.
When you originally started in 2016, did you maybe attempt to take leadership positions in other organizations?
Yeah, of course.
Because that probably maybe inspired you to say, like, maybe not getting rejected, but it was hard to get into those positions. So let me go do my own thing.
I'll tell you about like the Islamic Society specifically.
Because I know you were vice president of the student union.
I was vice president of the student union. I was also vice president of the Latrobe Islamic Society for almost 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Damn.
And we...
Mashallah.
And during that time, I went through, so each semester we'd have a different president. Because
so
at
there was 10 presidents.
Yeah, during my vice president time, right? And, well, not 10, I think a couple of presidents lasted a little bit longer, to be fair to them. But yeah, but my point is, I remember like the logical thing would have been to have a female president at the time, especially because we had a lack of males who were willing to lead, and it was just so frowned upon. It was just such a, like, that's impossible, like, that's not okay. I remember I had a brother who was president before I even came to uni, who literally had a meeting. He had heard that we were thinking of having a female president. He sat me down and was like, this is haram, you can't do this. Like, you can't have a female lead an organization.
Did he give you reasons?
They, you know, just reasons, like the general reasons
he'll make up
a female cannot lead a nation, you know, those hadith and
it's
stuff.
like it's Latrobe Islamic Society.
So like, of course, at the time it was.
What years were
difficult.
these? Like,
so I was from 2013 to 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
So you came after me, right?
I think the year you bounced, you go to me, hey, go do it. I'm like, What you want me
Yeah.
to do? And then
I was always looking for, like, because obviously we can't have females lead. So I was always like, whenever I would find a brother who I thought had the potential, or a brother who I thought like had good Islamic values and stuff, like I'd be like, hi, you know, go be in the Islamic society. Because literally we had to go look for them. We had to go find them. And even that was like, like I've look back on my university experience, it was such a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
know?
you would go sometimes, like with like out of 10, you go look for a male who's a 7 when there's like 5 sisters who are 9s.
Exactly.
Could be running it, but it's like no, we need
a male.
Yeah, and they don't ever want it.
You know?
One thing that I was talking not more so from a political way, but I was talking more from a marketing.
I know.
Marketing lens.
Yeah.
So for marketing, they basically tell you when you try to cater to everyone,
It's hard.
nobody wants to.
Yeah.
Nobody wants what you're selling, basically. But when you pick a particular niche or a particular pocket of society and you go hard in that direction, you'll more often than not gain a lot more like traction in that regard. So that's why I was like, when you guys like, don't you just go, you know what? There's no point. I don't know what guys want, you know. And then you guys get guys involved, and sometimes the guys are too much.
Yeah. I get you. But yeah, like I said, when it comes to community organizations, sometimes you have to go against what makes sense business wise.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to change things.
Yeah.
But to go against the tide, you have to do things sometimes that are challenging. And to do things that are challenging, you're not always going to just have acceptance, and people are like, oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna follow that. You know.
100%.
Does that mean a brothers retreat is happening soon? Because I know you had a sisters retreat.
So sometimes we do cater for only sisters. I don't know what a brothers retreat would look like, to be honest.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But no, honestly, yeah, like I'm not like, I agree with you, and 150% I agree with you in the fact that men need to be more aware of at least the way women work in general, you know, and women need to be aware of how males work as well, because like we were saying from before, divorce rates are through the roof, and now you're seeing people like perpetuating all these ideas on the internet going, like why are you even getting married in the first place? And that to us is wrong, like as Muslims, because if we strip it back, the grounded, like the base of everything is you get married, you start a life, and you just move on from there.
Interaction that is professional and with some boundaries, like Islamic boundaries, but still working together to create a product and that kind of thing is important, because that helps youth interact with the opposite gender in a safe environment that they can understand how other people work, and you know, it opens up minds a little bit. Like I know I kind of grew up working in youth organizations in that way, and I know that had a really positive impact on like my relationship with my husband. That's where we met in a youth organization, you know. Like there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with us talking about those kind of things too. Like we've gone off track, but no. Yeah, like that kind of stuff, that's like maybe a taboo topic, but I'm happy to talk about it, because I think that's important for us as a community to not increase the divorce rates, but to actually get like-minded people married and, you know, having kids and bringing up those kids into the community.
Is there any key lessons that come to mind, maybe that you like, not that you wish you learned earlier, but it would have been beneficial to learn earlier in your process with doing community work? Like you said, as a female, it's very difficult, but there might be a lot of other sisters who would love to do community work, and these lessons through your experience can be very beneficial to them. Is there things that come to mind?
Yeah, 100%. I think, so at the start, I think we were just kind of going, all right, we want to do this, we're going to get it done. And that was good, because we got there, alhamdulillah. But I think being open to allow, to understand that there's some certain skill sets that I might not have. Like me as an individual, for example, I'm not very business minded. In terms of like actual sustainability and money. So
creative,
so being aware of, like, I'm aware of that now, and, you know, we brought in people into Podium to kind of fill that gap, right? But trying to be acknowledge the fact that, okay, yes, maybe I'm trying to prove the fact that females can be leaders, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also that doesn't mean that I can do everything, because I can't. Like, I genuinely can't. There are certain things that I cannot do. One of them being money. Like, I can't do it. Other females might be good at money, but me as an individual, I can't do that. It's got nothing to do with my gender. And so being okay to just acknowledge that and seek the help that I need to make sure that my organization is able to thrive is really important, I think. And the other thing is that even though, yes, we are like trying to prove that there's nothing wrong with female leadership and so on, but just kind of just be normal about it. Like, just do my thing. Don't worry what people say. Don't worry what people do. Like, I don't need to be proving myself, because that just puts so much pressure on you as an individual, especially at a young age. I don't need to be the representative of anyone. I'm just me, doing my thing, doing what makes me happy, doing what I'm passionate about. Like, we don't need to carry the world on our shoulders, you know? And then what the outcome of that will be is that you're doing something that you love and you're happy with. And that's really important. You're doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't worry about what people are saying.
Okay, that touches on self-awareness. I wanted to also, because we've said the phrase a couple of times, like female leadership. And a lot of times, like, I go to business events, I'm a business guy, and they talk about like having a successful female entrepreneur on stage. There's 10 entrepreneurs that come on, successful entrepreneur, and then when it's the female, they say female entrepreneur, female leadership. Do you like when they say female leadership, female entrepreneur, or is it better just entrepreneur who happens to be a female?
Yeah, I don't like the emphasis on gender.
It differentiates it. Yeah.
Like, even, you know, the way that we took this conversation isn't really ideally how I would like to take it. Because, these are things that we do need to talk about. We do need to acknowledge there are gaps in certain areas, and in business, for example, maybe in engineering, in female leadership in Muslim communities and so on. We'll talk about that when we're talking about that particular problem. But if we're not talking about that problem, we're just doing networking or we're doing something. I'm just me doing my job. That's it. We don't need to add any labels to that, you know?
Yeah. No, honestly, you got taken back by the answer.
Sorry for shifting in a direction you didn't want to.
No.
I'd love to talk more about what Podium does. Because like you said, the magazine is about 50-50 maybe with writers.
Yeah.
It's very similar to our podcast where not everyone reads magazines. I'm not too sure how much percent of the population do. But we just use a rough estimation, like 20% of people listen to podcasts.
Yep.
So you're really a very specific market, and then you delve into different topics. Is there a magazine? How many have you actually published just over like the 5 years or so?
I think we're on our 17th.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Is there one that you're most proud of?
Which one?
Yeah, like which one? Yeah. Because maybe there's a story behind it or something like that. I'd love to know.
Okay, so there's probably the edition that we released about racism.
Okay.
So there's a few reasons. Firstly, because it was an example of our community coming together during a difficult time. So it was when the whole Black Lives Matter stuff was happening last year or the year before?
2020.
Yeah, in 2020. And we had a completely different plan for a theme, but it was like, okay, we can't just ignore this. We have to do something about it. And so we released a magazine, and I'm so proud of that magazine. Like, the content in it is just so amazing. It's a collection of people's experiences and people's analysis and things like that in such a short period of time. So that's partly why I'm proud of it. The other reason is because of the actual content. Like, you know, you have artwork, you have, you know, people expressing themselves and their own experiences, being 100% honest about the fact that racism exists within the Muslim community and what that looks like and what we need to do about it, being practical, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And these are kind of conversations that I feel there's a serious lack of in our communities. Like, yeah, okay, you might have like some people be like, okay, racism is bad, racism is not part of Islam. And I feel like that's kind of where it ends. But there is a serious problem of racism in our Muslim communities, and we need to look at that. What form does it come in, and do something about it? And that's what the magazine focused on. It didn't talk about like racism in the general population, but just in our community.
Where can people find that?
So on our website, you can back order. So I think, I can't remember what number of the edition it is at the moment, but you'll be able to tell. I think if the title's racism,
Okay, inshallah. We touched on before you being a lawyer, and now the idea of you making 17, obviously magazines. Obviously, it takes time. It's not every week. But then you had the Sisters Retreat we spoke about. You have the book club. You have the media. How do you balance all this? Because obviously you're married too.
Yeah. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, there's like some formula that makes it work. But over the years, like, I've also transitioned as a person, like you said. Like, so I started this when I was a university student, and then I suddenly became a lawyer and married at the same time. And so that changed things. But with Podium, like as Podium grew, the team grew as well. So at the start, you know, I was the one that was designing the magazine. Literally half of the content that was in it was written by me anonymously.
It's not Samira and Khadija.
It's just me, you know, to kind of get it out there and make it happen. I was the one that built the website at the start, you know, the initial first website. But now we have, you know, someone doing the website. We have the whole team of editors. We have, you know, I'm not editor-in-chief of the magazine anymore. I've handed that on to someone else. Okay. So like delegating those kind of things to other people who have those skill sets obviously helps a lot, and it grows the organization, but it allows me to free myself up to focus on different areas of Podium. And then also, like, I just have to be super organized, honestly. Okay. Like, I have to sometimes prioritize.
Do you have a routine to do that?
I do. Okay. My family laughs at how much I don't like unplanned things. But for me, everything needs to be planned. If things are not planned, I get so much anxiety about it.
I would never expect you to be a lawyer if you're going to be saying this.
Like,
I know that's the point,
No, planned as in, like, what's going to happen. Yeah. But, yeah, like, so for example, like these are my work days. These are the days I'm going to work. I'm not going to change it around, right? I like to know if, you know, my family is planning to go on a road trip. I'd like to know that in advance. But sometimes you have to be flexible and you have to...
How much in advance before it gets too tight? Is it? Yeah.
Look, so at the start of the month, I sit down and I figure out what I have on, because I have things like, because for work I've got court hearings, I've got property settlements, I've got all that kind of stuff, so I got to figure that out, and then I also, whatever Podium events I need to attend, what deadlines are coming up, so that's the stuff I can figure out at the start of the month. And then every start of the week I sit down and I figure out what exactly is going to happen at that week. So because I only work 4 days a week, sometimes like 3 to 4 days. So which days are going to be work days, depending on what the calendar's looking like. And then what is it that I need to do for Podium, what meetings we have coming up, all that kind of stuff. And then when am I going to visit my family? When am I going to visit my husband's family? When am I going to have just time at home? You know, I have to meal plan and figure out when am I going to have time to cook?
Yeah. So I was going to say, what do you fit eating? You know?
Yeah.
You plan eating as well?
I actually do. I do, because, like, you know, if you're going to come home from work, I get home from work at 6 o'clock. When are you going to have dinner? If I'm going to start cooking dinner at 6, it doesn't work. So I have to...
Uber Eats is...
Yeah, but you can't live off Uber Eats your whole life. Yeah. So...
I've tasted your mum's msakhan, my dog. That.
Do you also plan your downtime? Like plan days that's like, these are block out. I can't do anything Wednesday night, but it's personal. You and your husband, you and your family.
Yeah, I do. So I believe in something called hermit days. Okay. So hermit days is
entire day, not hours.
An entire day. I don't get them as often these days, but when I was at uni, I literally used to get them once a week. But now it's different. But like, I need days that are just me by myself to just do whatever I want, no work.
What would you do in those days?
I will watch TV. Okay. I will. Sometimes I'll clean if I have to.
Don't say you watch Suits.
No, I'm not a fan of Suits. I don't like Suits.
You reckon it's inflated, yeah?
She can see the flaws.
It's not.
You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. I've watched it, but I'm not a fan. Yeah. Okay.
So you'd watch shows, clean.
Yeah, like just and do things that I enjoy, like whatever it might be. Yeah, just take it easy, you know. And on those days, I'll also do my monthly planning. Yeah. So, yeah. But then they'll also, I'm like really exposing myself here.
That's fine. You should see mine. I'm exactly the same.
Yeah. And then, every week I need like one night in the week that, you know, I'm just at home with my husband, like just downtime like that. That's important also to factor in, because otherwise life is just always go, go, go. Yeah. What's the,
looking back on life as it is now, I don't know, I'm not going to obviously ask you your age because that's rude of a man to say that.
Oh, that's fine. I don't
But so
why didn't you guess then?
I'm not going to do that, bro.
Checking.
Trying to get me belted. But looking back on however many years you've been alive, what would you say the proudest moment? I know you've been to Palestine, if you have, or you've whether you've starting Podium or whether it was like that first case you won or whatever it was.
I need to think about that.
You won cases at least?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's awkward. She has now lost 5 years in a row.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Put you on the spot.
I don't
Surely you
think
have a
I do.
reflection, like you wrote.
Look, because I compartmentalize my life. So I have proudest podium moment. I have proudest like career moment.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, do you like personal? Like I have that, like I literally compartmentalize my life in that. I can't pick one.
How about the first thing that came to mind? Because it might not be the perfect answer, but it is close to
Launching Podium.
Okay.
That was.
Do you remember the date?
Like like our launch event.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was probably.
How is the running events? Because I know, like, how did the sister retreat go? I think it was December. When was it?
Yeah, it was in December. So we have an events team, obviously. Yeah. My brother's part of it.
Mashallah. With all the sisters.
Yeah, so I don't get that heavily involved with events anymore. But there's a lot that goes into running events. So obviously you have an idea and then you need to take this concept and make it into something practical. That on its own takes time. You need to put together a timeline, deadlines of when things need to be done. If you're contacting a speaker, book a venue, marketing. So there's a separate marketing team that then also needs to take over, do all of their thing. Website has to be involved for ticket booking, all that kind of stuff. And then, but once you get there and you're on the day, like I love attending events. Like I feel like the past 2 years because of lockdowns have been so miserable because when you come and you're attending events and this is like literally physically everyone coming together and doing something. Like this is what I love. Like I love being around the community and that kind of stuff, talking about things. That's like the best feeling. You really, really enjoy that. You know, whatever kind of event it is, whether it's an iftar or a sisters retreat, forum, whatever, there's always a purpose. And at the end of that night, like, you know, just seeing how many people came together to make it happen, the benefit that would have come out, getting the feedback, what can we improve, what was done well. Like that's my favorite part, I think. It's just such a buzz, you know?
Yeah. How was the sisters retreat? Overall, it was a success?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So Sister Dahlia came from Sydney and we had, it was just like a day of like self-development. So it was a personal development day and just having sisters from all walks of life come together, different professions and so on, just focusing on yourself. There was a lot of like, self-awareness kind of activities.
Okay.
Get to know your values and all that kind of stuff. And so you kind of walk away from that almost being able to reassess your life. That was kind of the point. So get to know yourself and reassess your life. Am I actually doing what I love? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? You know, and you got to keep in mind that with sisters, a lot of the people that attend are like stay-at-home mothers and things like that. So there was a lot of focus on that and what that means and how you can grow yourself and how you don't just define yourself as a mother, but you're you know, what are you? Aside from that kind of stuff as well, which is really important conversations to have.
You're giving people existential crisis. You just chuck everyone in
basically.
the
and then they can walk away and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with myself in the future. Like I do that on a yearly basis. That's part of my planning actually. On a yearly basis, I sit down and I'm like, okay, what are we doing this year? What's the focus? Right. And so when I do my monthly planning, I make sure that we go back and figure out what the focus is.
Do you break down your yearly goals into podium, personal, law?
I have 10 categories.
10 categories?
Yeah.
Okay. How, what, you didn't know this?
I can't even count to 10.
Okay. Sometimes, have you heard of Warren Buffett's 525?
No.
Okay, well, Warren Buffett, he used to have obviously like fourth richest man on the planet. Maybe that went down, but richest investor of all time. You know, you've heard of him? Okay, so he used to have a pilot on his aeroplane that was working with him for like 5-10 years. And then he asked him, he goes, like, there's no higher job than that. And he goes, why are you still working here? Because I love working with you, I make good money. He goes, no, you should have moved on from this because I should be teaching you principles that can, you know, make you wealthy. And then he goes, so what you're going to do is you're going to write down 25 goals, whatever it is. For example, one podium, I want to, I don't know, for me, play sports, gym, you know, buy a house, I don't know, whatever it is. And then you're going to write down 25 and then you're going to pick your top 5. Okay? And then you're going to put a line through the other 20. and you're
That's
only
what you're
going to try to
focus
achieve
on.
the 5. And then you're going to go on to then as soon as you achieve 1, you go to the 6, 7, 8. Because like you said before, with priorities, you can't fit everything in your life.
That's
And you probably see that. But I realize after hearing you, you have the self-awareness to delegate, which is very hard for CEOs, founders of organizations, because it's like they say, that's my baby, that's my jewel. So you
I've changed that.
Okay.
I used to be like that, but I realized that I can't do that because I have duties towards other things too. I can't just pick, okay, Podium is what I love and this is what I'm going to put my entire energy into, because I have duties towards my parents. I have duties towards my husband. I have duties towards my friends and towards even my career, and to ensure that I'm thriving in this world. I need to also, you know, be a normal human being and grow and that kind of stuff. Sorry. So I can't just have one focus. Like that's not, I don't think that is a way that we should be as Muslims. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he achieved this amazing thing, bringing a religion and changing the world with it, right? But he was also, he fulfilled his duties to his wives, to his children, to his friends, to his community, his neighbor, you know? He did all of that too, alongside doing his da'wah work that what we define as da'wah work, right? So why then are we being like, now this is my focus, I'm gonna focus on this. I really think you might achieve that thing in 5 years' time, but then stand up and look around and you've got literally nothing else. You've not progressed in any other part of your life, and then what's the point?
Yeah.
So you don't think people should try to be one-dimensional?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
So is there areas that you think maybe people should prioritize? Obviously, your experience, we're new to the game, and like you said, there's 10 areas in your life. Maybe we can pick like 3 or 4. Is there like, you really think everyone should have one community thing they do, maybe once a week, once a fortnight, like one community venture? What type of things are important for people to prioritize?
So I can tell you what my 10 things are.
Okay, if you know them, I thought you might forget them. That's what I get.
So for me, there's like personal worship, and then there's community work, which is also a form of worship. But I believe it's really important to have your own personal time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and figure out what that is and what it is that you're going to focus on and work on that isn't involving anyone else. Then you have your community worship, which is your da'wah work that you're doing with other people, and that's for the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to also grow the community, right? Then I have big family, little family. So
you really break it down.
Cousins and that?
No, big family as in like my in-laws, my family,
immediate
that kind
family.
of stuff. And then little family would be me and my husband, and then kids in the future, whatever, right?
Okay.
So that kind of breakdown. And then I have career, I have education, and hang on, I'm going blank. Oh, financial.
Okay. So you're learning a bit more about finances.
Yeah, like, because you have to, as an individual who lives on this earth and works and makes money, you need to know what to do with that money, right? Hang on, I'm going blank. Oh, health, and then mental health. So health is in physical, and then mental health, and then I forget what the last one is.
That's fine. Because you said education, and obviously you write magazines, or maybe you're a part of it, you're part of that process. Where do you try to gain most of your knowledge from? Like in the educating, is it podcasts? Is it books? Is it? Yeah, I know you're an avid listener every week, Monday nights. But then
I do actually watch. Like, it's not a joke. I actually watch you guys, but not every Monday now. I kind of clump them.
That's a new habit. We'll put on the weekly tech list. But is there like, where's that education? Where does that come from?
So with education, so you kind of also have to break that down, right? Islamic education and then normal education. So at the moment, I'm studying my master's, so that's the goal for this year. Yeah, so that's the focus of education this year. I don't think I have capacity for much else. But in the past, it was so Islamic education focus. So pick something that I want to learn about. Usually, I end up picking something that's tafsir related because that's just my favorite. Like, just
understandable. Is
that
YouTube series, a book?
YouTube series.
Okay.
I like lectures. I like listening.
Anyone you like in particular?
That kind of stuff. Yasser Qadi is my favorite for tafsir, just because he relates it to our Western world a lot more than other sheikhs. But yeah, so that kind of education is usually through online and that kind of thing. And then in terms of other just I consider this education, but just like getting to know like the community and what is needed and that kind of stuff is actually through podcasts and stuff like that. So that like through listening to you guys, I am exposed to a different type of thinking than what I'm used to, for example. That's also, I'm benefiting from that. I'm growing from that, you know?
Okay.
SubhanAllah.
That kind of stuff.
See, when I hear you telling me you got 10 things on your list, all I'm thinking about is, ya Allah, how many people is she seeing a week? How many people is she seeing a day? I don't know. I have a limit. You know what I mean? Like I love people. I love like my family and everybody, but like there's a limit for me because you must, and especially because you don't really have too much of a control over certain parts of your environment, so you start seeing like a different spectrum of human, you know.
Yeah.
So like to you, what do you tell yourself when you come across people you don't really have, like, you know, like
We're not on the same wavelength.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like
You can probably see she didn't even list friends as one of the 10.
I just, you reminded me, my last one was social. Yeah, that was the last one.
you don't need
Yeah.
it, don't worry about it.
That was like added after university, actually. I was like, hey, I need to actually make friend goals. Otherwise, I'm going to walk away with no friends. Like, yeah. But to answer your question, look, I think people are different. And I don't see that as a negative thing. Like, yeah, sometimes my values with the person that I'm talking to at the time, especially at work, do not align at all. But that's okay. Like, and that's why we do our community work, right? That's what we're trying to bring about change and to bring Islam as the core place where people get their values and their lifestyles and so on. So we're trying to bring about that change. But I acknowledge that the way that people are going to do that, and the way that people live their lives and the way they talk and the way they interact is going to be very different than I am. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't need to change that as long as they're not harming anyone.
Yeah.
Then we're good. But that took me, especially when I was like straight out of high school, because I went to Islamic school, you know,
Sheltered.
yeah, very like sheltered in a bubble kind of thing. And then going to university, first couple of years were okay. Then I started like doing like student union work and like some of the journalism subjects we had to like go like outside of university with people and film things and stuff. And that was my first kind of interaction with people that weren't Muslim. And it was shocking. It was weird. Sorry. But like you get used to it. You kind of just have to realize that people have different lifestyles than you. That's fine. You do you, I do me.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the hermit day and the planning, like downtime, is the thing that kind of keeps you sane. Because you know, for example, you're drained Monday, Tuesday, you're seeing people, you're like, but Thursday night, I know I'm not going to see anyone. So because you have something to look forward to, you can kind of maybe control your things. But then it's different social levels. Like maybe that's more the introverted side of you, maybe post-COVID, when now you just don't have the energy to actually see people every day.
Doesn't do it for me. Hermit day. I need a hermit month. I'll be honest.
Look, I am a very like interpersonal person. I'm a social person.
These are new words for me.
Yeah, like I'm not. If I can't, like lockdown was a difficult time for me.
Okay.
I can't just sit at home and not speak to people. Like I need people in my life. You know what I mean? So that obviously helps a lot. And then I think you also kind of reach a point in your life where I think those 10 categories help because you're like, I'm not interacting with this person for fun. There is a reason why I'm interacting with this person. My fun time of interaction with people who I actually like is here.
Your planned social life.
So my planned social life, exactly. So that's when I will interact with those people.
Yeah.
So I can't expect that every minute of my life is going to be just fun and I'm going to enjoy it. That's not what God put us on this earth for.
Yeah.
You know, we have to interact with everyone.
Yeah, just problem solving life. That's what I noticed. Or for what I learned from was the book. Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He goes, life is just bad. Yeah, no, but like, you're laughing at. What are you laughing at? But life is just basically like problem solving and then happiness after you solve a problem. And then you just solve more problems and then they make more happiness. You know what I mean? So, but I wanted to see what your advice would be to maybe a younger Aseel. You know, like maybe before Podium.
Before Podium, me.
But like before being exposed to university life and all that sort of stuff. Because there are people like, I think our demographic is around that range, you know. So what would you say to younger Aseel around 18 years old?
I think that
Keep putting on the spot, bro.
no, I want to answer this one properly. But I think that, okay, so realizing that the world that I grew up in, because again, I've talked a little bit about my parents, but like my parents were very much involved in the community and that kind of stuff, and we were a religious family, right? So that world and our Islamic school world is not the real world. That's not the world that's out there, right? Realizing that I come from a privileged place as well, and acknowledging that privilege and figuring out what to do with that privilege from an early age is important. But yeah, that's not really advice.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a point. Like there's somebody in a similar position to yourself who has that privilege, like you were saying, and you basically tell them like, look at the world as a holistic place rather than just a place that you see it from your lens, and everybody else should see it the way you see it. Why am I telling her? I'm looking back and I'm like, wait, she shouldn't.
Yeah, no, yeah. You put it in better words than what I was trying to say. But yeah, like that's what I mean. And also just realizing that people come from different points of view. People come from literally different walks of life, and there is nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You don't need to change people. I feel like I went out in the world and then I was like, whoa, what's this? No, like, you know, we need to change this. And then now I'm more of an approach that I don't need to change people. I just need to, like what my da'wah needs to be is to bring Islam at the forefront of our minds as a communities. And then what people do with that is up to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides hearts, and He will guide people to wherever they need to go. That's not my responsibility. That's my advice. It's not my responsibility to guide people. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that guides their hearts. My responsibility is to bring Islam to the core of every conversation, or to the core of our lives.
That's it. Plant the seed, huh?
So we got there in the end.
I came around.
Oh, happy. It's good content.
It seems like you've learnt the skill of being a bit content with knowing you can only do so much. Exactly the same as Podium, what you said before, with delegating, you're like, this is my skill set, I can't do finance, I can't do some business. And then even in your da'wah, you're like, I can't change their mind, it's up to Allah. Was there an incident that made you start to think like this, like, I'm limited, but maybe there's strength in numbers, or like, you know? Look,
I'll be honest, it was during the time when we started Podium and so on. So I had a little brother, his name was Hamoud. He had cancer, he had Down syndrome, right? And so my uni life is very different looking back on it to what a normal uni life was. So because of my brother, like I spent a lot of time in hospital with him. And so my time was always very limited. And it was only so much that I could give and only so much that I could do because of that. And that's because, you know, I guess what I was meant to be doing during that time was taking care of Hamoud. Now, looking back on that, I realized that. And I feel like at the time I was really burdening myself with all these other things, with, you know, these things that I had ideas of how to change the community, how to change the mosques. Oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I would feel really disappointed when I would give of myself towards something, my very limited self, right? And then it was like not fruitful.
To no avail,
or people didn't appreciate it, or, you know, whatever it is, right? And it was only after Hamoud passed away, Allah yarhamu, that I realized that, you know, that's not the right way to go about life. You know, you will do what you can, but what people do with that, what happens after that, that's just not in your control. And so that completely changed the way I was thinking. But it was very much because I was just so limited in what I could do, you know, and it used to like really disappoint me. Like I would get so upset, you know.
It's called what do they call it in psychology? Unrelenting standards. That's what it's called. Unrelenting standards. Yeah, that's the one. So it's like basically you can never live up to whatever you think you should be able to do, or what you think you expect of yourself.
Yeah, that's very true. And so realizing that I can't do everything.
Was that like a tough thing to take?
It really was, because and also just because, Okay, so Hamoud passed away, Allah yarhamu, and then I did have more free time, but I had a lot of grief, which also disabled me I had time, but I didn't have mental capacity to do stuff, right? And so yeah, I was really struggling that year. Let's just say that. Yeah. I was really, really struggling the year that after he passed away, the year that he was sick, and that was a difficult time, but I feel like I felt like I was coping and managing. The following year, it was just a really difficult time because I was like, I can't do any more, and nothing is changing. Nothing, like none of the stuff that I'm doing is getting me anywhere. So that was, I think, a big breaking point. What made you go stop? Like, now I'm basically in quicksand right now. Like, the only way to get out of this situation is to like stop, analyze the situation, and just go about things the right way, rather than trying to run hard in one direction. My husband.
Okay,
yeah, Hakim is a very grounded person, alhamdulillah. And so I think like just, you know, when you get married, you rub off on each other, you talk things through and stuff. And I feel like following his advice and just seeing how he dealt with life really sort of readjusted me a little bit as well. Yeah. And I think that's actually really important. Like, just that comes back to people have different experiences in life, and people come from different walks of life, and that's not a negative thing, because his perspective on what was going on with me really helped me to kind of overcome it. But like, other people in my life would not have understood that because they were going through that too. Like my mum, for example, she was going through the same thing that I was going through. She wasn't going to be able to, you know, give me advice on that. But he was able to, if that makes sense.
From the outside looking in, basically. No, 100%. It's always good to get a fresh perspective. I think that's what we do wrong. Wallah, that's what we do wrong. We always discount the person because we see them as like fallible, like this is a human being, whatever it is. They don't know what I'm going through because they haven't experienced similar things. So you automatically go, okay, no.
They're not going to be able to help me.
Exactly,
but their perspective like is important as well, I think. And yeah, just also like realigning your values and all that kind of stuff, I think really helps too.
100%.
I wanted to know, you brought up Hakim. That reminded me, because obviously we're not married and we don't know how to handle relationships when you're married and stuff like that. But hearing your schedule seems like life gets intense at times. Yeah. And I can picture in my head, if I'm married and my wife, and I tell my wife, we can have dinner together Wednesday and Friday, or date nights, only those, and I'm busy the rest of the time. It's like, you know,
on the timetable.
It's not okay.
So how do you balance at least like the relationship thing? Because, you know, relationship is probably the biggest priority.
I think that goes back to before you're married, actually, because you like, if you know that that's the kind of life that you want, which is what I knew that I'm not going to just get married and that's it. That's the end of my community work. I saw a lot of females that were older than me that after they get married, they just drop off the face of the earth. And I would literally remember sitting there and being like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. But what does that mean? How am I going to be able to, you know, what's the problem? How did we get there? How did they get to the point where they have to fall off the face of the earth, not attend halaqas anymore, not do anything? Like, what happens? And so, like, when choosing my husband, I was always like, I want to choose someone who knows the importance of community in my life. And so Hakim used to do a lot of community work himself. So he obviously comes from a place of understanding. He comes from a place where he knows where that passion comes from, why I do it, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't need to sit him down and explain it to him, because he has that for himself, you know? So I think it's really important that when you choose the person that you're going to marry, you choose someone that has the same values as you. So if it's you know, I really value service, for example, that if he doesn't have that value, he at the very least is to be understanding of it, you know. You know, if it's business, for example, you know that, you know, my career is really, really important to me. The person that I marry needs to understand why my career is important to me. They need to understand that, okay, it's not just something that I say. It's also going to mean I'm going to stay late at work. I'm going to work on weekends. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It might mean I'm going to delay kids, whatever it is, right? They need to understand that before they marry you, not after. because they can't all of a sudden,
Yeah.
oh wow, I'm married and this person has a very different lifestyle than what I have. Like that
And
doesn't
you
work.
tell them I'm busy for you even on home at day.
Yeah. But also I think like I'm not disrespecting Hakim. Like I'm not being just pretending like he doesn't exist, because he's a really important part of my life. That's I come home from work. I tell him all about my work day. I tell him all about Podium. I share my ideas with him. He helps me grow them and that kind of stuff. Like he can't be isolated from that. Otherwise, what's the point of being married? Or I might as well just live by myself,
100%.
Like, and it would be really disrespectful for me to just be like, your time is here. Right? That doesn't work. Yes, okay, there's a schedule, but he's a part of that schedule in every part of it. Like, he knows what's going on. He encourages it. He shares, my thoughts. He will give me ideas of how to grow Podium, or will give me ideas of how to manage certain things, that kind of stuff. Like, we have conversations about it. It's something he's also passionate about,
It seems like he's supportive. Obviously, I think a lot of our audience is either not married or on the verge of getting married. Is there maybe some questions that you think will be important to ask to find out if your spouse would be supportive? Because sometimes, when you're getting to know someone, anything you ask, yes, whatever you want, I'll do that. And then you get married and you're like, wait, I didn't know you're actually going to be busy that frequently. Or I didn't know that we're only going to have 1 or 2 nights together, something like that. Is there maybe questions that...
Just go to the retreat.
Done.
Okay, so I mean, it's always like I'm not an expert in this field, but I'll just share from my own experiences and from what I've seen, I think. And from my own experience, I think actual questions are not really where you get your answers. Because, and like you said, anyone will just say whatever they want. Like, this person wants to marry you, he will just say whatever he thinks or she thinks you want to hear. That's natural. You know what I mean? So you really need to do your research and see how they live their life, right? Because if someone is very, what do they prioritize? Like, if someone is, their priority is that they're going to spend time at home, they want to it's got nothing to do with the community. Their life has got nothing to do with other people. It's me. It's my career. It's my family. It's my self-growth, all that kind of stuff. I know that that's not someone that's going to be compatible with me. And I'm going to be able to see that by looking at how they live their life, right? So you need to actually take some time to look at how the person lives their life, what kind of friends they have. Like, I know people answer that a lot, like, we'll look at their friends, but it actually makes a difference. Like, if you look at my friends are people who work in the community. It's very obvious that my closest friends are the ones that I do community work with, so it makes sense. Or even when I was at uni, they were either law students or whatever, so things like that as well, right? So look at their closest friends. Look at how they interact with their family as well. That's really, really important. Like, do they... like for me, for example, yes, I'm a busy person, but even with my parents, when I used to come home, I would literally spend at least 1 hour just telling them all about my day and talking to them about it and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's how I interact with my family, because family is still important to me, even if I'm a busy person, right? So how do they interact with their family? How do they live their life? That kind of stuff. How often do they go out with their friends, and what kind of things do they do with their friends? What do they do for fun and that kind of stuff? That's the stuff that will give you an idea of what kind of lifestyle they have, not really the questions. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on one thing. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Because I know the productivity can be a curse sometimes when you're trying to plan so many things. Sometimes you go, when your day is planned out too much, you're not present in the moment. I don't know if you experience the same kind of thing, but it's like, okay, I'm doing this now, but I still have 3-4 more things I need to do after this. And it's like, boom, 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 step 1, step 2, step 3. Do you encounter this, by the way? Like, at least when you're with family or when you're doing one task, you're always thinking about the next and the next.
I did. I used to.
Perfect.
I think I used to. So when the way I schedule myself now is very different than what I used to do. So what you're talking about, like having multiple things straight after each other is how I used to schedule myself. But now it's more in blocks.
Okay.
So, and then whatever happens in that block happens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, so I try to keep like 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sundays for, that's my weekend community work time. After 1 p.m. is family time, right? So I don't need to sit there and think about that because that's just set. You know, unless something happens, something's going to change there. That's fine. We'll change it around, you know. But if you all kind of set it up as blocks, not like from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So from 10 a.m. to 11, I have this meeting. Then 11 to 12, I'm going to clean. And like when you mix it up like that, I feel like you get really stressed out.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And you
so
can't be present.
yeah, you can't. You're not giving yourself sufficient time to do the task and think about it. You're just doing stuff. But you need to like give yourself time, I think, to get into the mindset of the thing that you're going to do and do it and be in a zone of doing it, you know? Yeah.
There's a book, it's called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and he talks about attention fatigue. It's like each time you pull out your phone or you distract yourself from one task to the next, it takes like 23 minutes to get back to that flow state, you know, like flow state when you're in deep work. So it's an interesting thing because when you give yourself those 10 to 11, 11 to 12, all you're thinking about is the next task and you actually can't give your task 100%.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to do great work doing 60%.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things only now you realize. It's like now a lot of the time I tell myself, you're doing this from 10 to 1, don't think about anything else. Just do it, and then after 1, you focus on the next task.
Yeah.
Because your brain tries to get the better of you.
Yeah,
You know, so
that's very true. And then I think also when you've actually scheduled yourself properly and you know that you've given everything time to get it done, like it reduces your stress. And the reason you're thinking about the next task is because you need to think about how you're going to get it done, all that kind of stuff. But if you've actually given yourself sufficient time to do it, then you're not like your brain's not stressed out about it. You know, so you're just like, when it comes, I'll deal with it. You know, yeah.
It's a very interesting conversation. Very similar people. I'm just sitting
I wanted
on the side.
as the last thing
Share
to,
schedules.
I might have to end the episode. Is there anything you wanted to specifically mention, chat about, ask, you know, or just in case something came to mind, like before the episode, like, I'd love to ask these boys or even get their opinion on something, or just wanted to end it on your note, just in case.
Ask him, no.
Yeah. Get us on.
I kind of have always been curious. How do you guys choose your guests?
Okay, reminded a bit longer than what we have left.
For me, it's basically I drink a coffee in the morning, and then I have like a massive like rush of energy, and then my brain just goes, "Hang on, this brother," da, 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 and then I'll think of like about topics that I want to talk to them about. So, for example, Abu Hamza was recent, and I don't know where I'm like, bro, he used to ruqya.
And you
Interesting stories, bang, let's go from there. And then I'll have different things. Now, I used to call Ali a lot. When I was on the road, I used to be like, Ali, write this down. Quick, write this down, write that down. You know, like, but that's just how it comes to me. I don't
like
know.
spur of the moment type thinking, yeah.
There's a couple different things. One thing is I look at it and say, would I want to have a conversation with this person if I wasn't on a podcast? So you say, okay, are they interesting? And then is there a benefit? Because that's the main goal. Like, it's nice to have a conversation with someone. Like, a lot of young people have mad comments. They're like, we should start a podcast. And then it's like, it's only because of their ideas. But going back to what you said about Podium before, we like to bring people on who have the knowledge and let them kind of voice their opinion, and we maybe just guide the conversation.
And that too.
Yeah, so a lot of now a lot of the time it's interesting person, maybe interesting story, and there has to be a benefit.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah,
we're still in the beginner stages. So, and there's 4 people, like for example, the Abu Hamza episode, Suhail said, I want to get him. And the boys like, oh, I don't know, because we don't really have a connection with him.
Yeah.
And then we got him on and we're like, man, that was a beautiful episode. That was amazing. But it's like, that was Suhail's idea. And the same thing for another guest, like Legendary or Ali or I will do the same thing. And it just, we got to trust each other's judgment.
Yeah. It's really good, mashallah.
4 brains.
Yeah,
We've got to figure out something.
4.5. Alhamdulillah. You want to end it off?
Nah, yeah, we appreciate you coming on us, honestly. Yeah, like it's good to like at least get somebody who's from the community who's done it from such a young age and like we can obviously get sisters on inshallah in the future, and you kind of setting the tone. You're making it a lot more easier for other sisters to come on and to like connect inshallah. So we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
If you
I
want
do want to say one more thing.
go for it.
I feel like I talked a lot about like what's good in my life, but obviously I also struggle, and I've reached this point through struggle, you know, and life is a struggle. So I said all of the things that I've figured out to cope with things and that kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean like I'm perfect or I've got it all figured out or anything like that. I'm not an expert in any of these fields, but yeah, just thought, yeah.
Do you recommend
personal
people to
experience.
read Who Am I then?
Hmm?
Do you recommend people to read the new magazine coming out?
Read
Who Am
it,
I?
of course. Yes, read it. Subscribe to the magazine. Come to Podium events. You know, come volunteer with us as well. We would love to have.
Where can they
everyone
find
on
you?
board. We've got our Instagram, podium.production, Facebook, website. They can even like message me privately as well, and we can talk about where they can fit in. Inshallah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Aseel, again.
Jazakallah khair.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. I have to do this. I love doing this because I heard that 65% of people aren't subscribed, yeah? So just please, do us a favor. It doesn't hurt. You're not going to hurt your fingers by pressing it. There's a button underneath. Press subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and we'll see you next week.